Madam Clerk.
Welcome to this Town of Newmarket Council meeting on Monday, June 26, 2017. All members of council are present with the exception of Councillor Hempin, and Mayor Van Bynen is presiding.
Thank you. Under public notices, I would like to recognize that the federal government announced that June 21st will now be known as National Indigenous Peoples Day. And in keeping with this, I would like to acknowledge the land that Newmarket is on and to thank the First Peoples of the Williams Treaties First Nations and other Indigenous people for sharing this land with us. I would also like to acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as our closest Indigenous community. We do have some amendments we do not have any amendments to our agenda. Mr. Shelton?
Mr. Mayor, the two that we had talked about are administrative. They're minor corrections and they can be dealt with by the clerk.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Regional Councillor.
Yeah, thanks very much. Again, as I have for several years now in relation to 260 Eagle Street, which is just a few houses away from a property I own. This is item number 6 on our agenda today, which is item 10 of Committee of the Whole, June 19th. And I'll be declaring an interest on that item, and I won't participate in that again.
Okay, so we'll deal with that separately as we go forward. We'll start then with our presentations and recognitions, and Aaron Rogers is here with the South Lake Regional Health Center. Aaron?
Quickly. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, sorry, and I forgot to add on item number 17 on the agenda, which is the zoning bylaw on 260 Eagle as well.
Okay, sorry. Good.
I'm Erin and this is Jessica. We are the event team at South Lake Regional Health Center Foundation, and we are here on a congratulatory note. We are here to officially present the trophy to this town council. This is the Merrill Challenge that was part of the 2017 Runner Walk for South Lake. And you'll note that when we came to issue the challenge, we had members of the Aurora Town Council with us, and there are none available here tonight. We have been assured that this is because they have started their fundraising platform for next year and they were not available to be here tonight. But they do issue their congratulations. This team, the Town of Newmarket team, raised $3 short of $9,000 this year, so $897. And the event in total raised $215,000 net. For the hospital. So we're here just to say thank you for your support. Also thank you for the members of the town staff that helped us with the transition to Davis Drive. The staff at the Newmarket Seniors Meeting Place were excellent, as well as the Traffic and Roads Department did a great job in helping us facilitate that big change. It was a big move to Davis Drive. We know we had 1,300 participants, and it was a really wonderful event, and we're just here to say congratulations and thank you, and to leave the official plaqued trophy with you here.
Okay, great, thank you. As part of the presentation, do we have anyone to take a picture here? Okay, there we are. Good. So why don't I have members of council come in, but I also like to invite Jennifer Lindsay, of our staff, who actually was the organizer and got everybody engaged in the program and got us all to show up on a very cold and rainy day, but we all knew that it was important for our hospital. So maybe we could receive the trophy here in the center together with Jennifer.
change. And I don't need a receipt. There you go.
So you see what it takes to get $5 out of Councillor Kerwin. But thank you, David. You took us over the.
That's it, Tony.
Well, this is probably a good segue from one great community partner to another. So our next presentation is a presentation by Chief Eric Jolliffe and Superintendent Michael Slack from District 1 to tell us about, or give us our annual update with York Regional Police and our community.
Assuming the screen is up on all of your screens as
Yes.
well?
So, good evening, and it's really a distinct honor and a privilege to be here yet again for another year to give you a bit of an update about what your regional police service has been doing for the last year. Joining me is Superintendent Michael Slack, who I'm sure you all have met, and also Inspector Paula De Silva has joined us. So we thought we would just take about 20 minutes of your time, we hope, to give you a bit of a snapshot of the service, some crime statistics, information about what our frontline folks are up to on a yearly basis, some chat around quality of service, what we're doing in response to a growing region, and then we're going to talk specifically about matters here in the Newmarket and One District area. So, having said that, we'll move along here, and just want to give you a snapshot of your regional police service. So, we are now 2,245 members as of this year's approved budget. You know that we police a jurisdiction of 1,750 square kilometers, and we have ownership or responsibility for about 350 square kilometers of Lake Simcoe also. We have 1,579 sworn officers, 623 civilian staff. We also have over 550 folks that volunteer with our police service to give back to community. On top of that, we have over 235 community partners that we deal with on a fairly regular basis. For our second year in a row, York Regional Police has been named one of the top 100 employers in the Greater Toronto Area. We're very proud of that. Worked very hard to achieve that status. In terms of our budget, we have an operating budget of just about $311 million, and we also have the responsibility of visiting over 450 schools across the region and 300 places of worship that we engage in on a fairly regular basis. You can see from the slide back, if we just move back for a second, in terms of the diversity or demographics of our service, you can see that we are continuing to make our police service more diverse of the community that we serve. So this next slide we share with Regional Council, and this is a very positive good news story on a number of fronts. So in terms of crime rate, we compare ourselves to police services across Canada of similar size, police services that have communities of over 1 million people living in them. As you know, York Region is about 1.2 million. Our crime rate is the lowest amongst our peers across Canada. And actually, if you have an opportunity to occasionally read Maclean's magazine, they sometimes do the top 100 safest communities in Canada, and we are ranked number 3. Halton Region is number 2, and Caledon was rated number 1. So we're pretty proud of the fact that when you can compare a community of 1.2 million people to one of 80,000. That's a pretty significant achievement, and that doesn't happen without obviously great staff, but also significant community partners like yourselves that we work with. In terms of crime severity, so this is serious crime across Canada, so we are the lowest ranking in that category also. We occasionally refer to police to population ratio, so that's the number of police officers serving citizens in a community. You can see from this chart here that we serve, one officer serves 752 citizens, and you can see that most other jurisdictions have more members to serve community than we do. And you'll see, which is also very important to note, especially when you're talking about budget, that we're the lowest per capita cost amongst all of our peers across Canada. In fact, we are one of the most cost-effective organizations in North America. And to bring it perhaps a little closer to home here, we have some data on places that might compare themselves to Newmarket. Brantford, Peterborough, Sarnia, and Sault Ste. Marie are all over $300 per capita. So we think that we're providing fairly cost-effective service to our community. So in this next slide, we talk a little bit about what our frontline folks are up to every day, and you can see from these statistics here that fairly busy organization. We received 213,000 911 calls in 2016, 387,000 on our non-emergency line, another 198,000 citizen-generated calls, 139,000 officer-generated calls. We laid over 110,000, because I know traffic is a piece of information that you're always interested in. We laid over 110,000 traffic tickets last year, cautioned 37,000 drivers, and we made over 95,000 additional traffic stops. So very much in community, very attuned to citizens' requests in terms of traffic and traffic enforcement. And we thought we'd share, this is another slide we share at Regional Council in terms of the service rating that your police service gets. So we survey our community every 3 years. So the last time we surveyed it was in 2013, and we had a very satisfied rating of almost 95%. And in 2016, when we did that survey again, pretty close to 95% again. In our next slide here, we're going to talk about response to a growing community. So no surprise to you that York Region is growing in its robust way, and we are challenged as an organization to keep up with that particular growth. This past 2 years, we've spent a significant amount of time reviewing our frontline deployment, where we have moved to what we call a sector model approach, where we place more vehicles in a particular patrol area. We've grown the size of a patrol area, but put additional cars in that area, and have seen some very significant success. We were looking for some specific returns on investment from that, additional visibility of our supervisors to support our frontline people, and also attempting to reduce our response time. So we started this project in Markham in 2016, where we were able to see an entire minute shaved off our response time by rebuilding our patrol design. We've been busily for the last couple of years reviewing our call load and how we receive calls and how we can deliver our service more efficiently to community, and more online reporting if required, and making sure that our citizens have the abilities to contact their police in easy fashion. As you know, particularly here in the Newmarket area, we have slated in our capital budget for our new police facility that currently is located on Harry Walker Parkway. We originally York had bought property there. We have almost 3.5 acres there set aside for us to build a new one district headquarters, which is slated for starting 2018, 2019. So we hope to be in there by 2020. Some of you may be aware that we just opened a brand new training facility in the town of East Gwillimbury. So what you may not be aware is the fact that our industry is very heavily regulated regarding training regimes. For any specialty unit that we have requires specialized training for each of our working groups. We have about 75 members that are in training every day of the week to be compliant for our provincial adequacy standards. Every frontline police officer has to go through a 4-day training session every year. So that space is, which we just opened about 2 weeks ago, is fully occupied. It's about 85,000 square feet. We have a 50-meter range there for the training of our frontline folks around the use of and proficiency around the use of their firearms. We have a very robust mental health support group where we have actually social workers working hand in hand with our frontline officers to work in community to help us respond to mental health issues. And I can tell you that mental health continues to be a very prominent thing within our community and very prominent matters that as an organization we have to respond to. And we've seen increases of 20 and 25% year over year in terms of responding to mental health matters. And I think you probably know that as an organization we're nationally recognized for our work in the community. And I think 2 weekends ago, I think it was a prime example of how community can come together, especially here in Newmarket, where you hosted York Pride, and we were very much a part of that process. And I want to congratulate the town for allowing that to unfold. And I think that was an outstanding day for community as a whole. But we are nationally recognized for the work that we do. As I said, we're into almost every places of worship within this region on a fairly regular basis. We're in. So at this stage, I think I'll turn it over to Mike, and he can talk specifically about matters here in one district in Newmarket.
Good. Thank you, Chief. And again, I'll speak specifically to one district command, as well more specifically to Newmarket and some of the questions that you posed to us as part of the presentation. So one district polices the municipalities of Newmarket, Aurora, King Township, and East Gwillimbury. And of course our station is located on Prospect, as you know, and we also have officers that are located out of a Bales Drive location in East Gwillimbury. There's 2 of us in command there. You've probably met Inspector Paulo da Silva in the past before. We have approximately 196 officers that work for us at that district. The majority of those, of course, would be in uniform patrol, being 144. Then we have 36 officers that make up our Criminal Investigative Bureau, who do both person crime investigations and property crime investigations. By person crime or crimes against persons, that would be your assaults, sexual assaults, those types of investigations. And property crimes range from some of our theft from vehicles, break-and-enters, and I'll speak a little bit to that, as well as those officers do general drug investigations in the district. And we have 9 officers assigned to our core office, which stands for Community-Oriented Response. And those are the officers you will often see that manage a lot of our community events, that manage the traffic management around those, as well as they're a useful tool that I can use as a commander when we see problems or trends, traffic management issues specific to what either you're reporting to me or members of the community are reporting to me. We can then task those officers specific to those issues. And I'll talk a little bit about the sector policing. If you look at the map there, you'll see The green area is one district. And when we created sector policing, what that allowed us to do is create larger patrol zones, but with a push to keep officers within their sector. And what we wanted to do is create an environment where all of our officers had an equal workload, but also equal opportunity for proactive and directed patrol. One of our complaints when we, in part of this study, was our officers were, some of them were just going call to call to call, and weren't having an opportunity to engage in the community and do that proactive work that we specifically want. So what that did for one district is we have a total of 5 sectors with 16 patrol officers per sector. For you in Newmarket, that means there's 2 sectors that are basically the east and west, divided by the railway that goes up the middle. And you now have, and we increased, when we went to sector policing, we increased the number of patrol officers in Newmarket by 1, and now you have 8 officers who are dedicated to patrol within Newmarket. 5 on the west and 3 on the east. We also looked at a different patrol model. So for our night shifts, we've now gone to where we have a 12 to 12 shift and a 3 to 3 shift. You can imagine as we study the types of, or the amount of calls, and historically we had the exact same number of officers working at 4 a.m. as we would at 4 p.m. or at 7 a.m. So instead of our night shift all coming in at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., we now have officers starting at 12, working till 12 midnight, and at 3, working till 3 a.m. And that allows for that crossover. What you would have seen in the past is when officers came in at 7, there was a bulk of calls waiting stacked up. So our response times were greater. Now that we've been able to go to a 12 to 12 and a 3 to 3, that allows us to cover those response times much quicker and much more effectively. One of the questions was to look at some comparators in crime. And as the chief mentioned, York Region enjoys a very low crime rate, and Newmarket is no different. We'll look at break and enter comparisons, and what we did as well is we wanted to compare to cities in similar size. So we looked at Brantford, Kawartha Lakes, Peterborough, Sarnia, and Sault Ste. Marie. As far as break and enters go, that's both residential and commercial. And you'll see over the last 5 years, it's been relatively flat with no noticeable increase. And you're in Newmarket, the orange along the bottom, so it's fairly low in comparison. Theft over comparison. When I say theft over, the criminal code defines theft over or theft under $5,000. So it's theft over $5,000 or theft under $5,000. And you'll notice there's been a pretty noticeable decline since 2013 to 2015 in the number of theft over occurrences. And theft under comparison is very similar to the break and enter comparison, where they're fairly flat over the last 5 to 6 years. When we look at theft over, primarily that is your theft of vehicles. That could be in some of the development areas where you're looking at theft of copper. We have shoplifting rings where there's large-scale theft in one occurrence or a number of occurrences, as well as theft of recreational vehicles, that sort of thing. Theft under would be primarily theft from vehicles in the evening, vehicles that are left unlocked. Theft of iPads, iPhones, that sort of thing would be the theft under occurrences that we deal with. Traffic enforcement is also a major priority for as we survey the community, and it is a major priority for us as well. We at One District follow the York Regional Police traffic management strategy with our goal to reduce fatalities and serious injuries through collisions. And in order to do that, we look at the big 4 contributors, which are impaired driving, and that now includes, or it does always include, the impaired by drug. It includes distracted driving, which is a new phenomenon over the last 10 years. Aggressive driving, which would include speeding, is now within aggressive driving. as well as seatbelt compliance. I know those are the major contributors. To identify how our initiatives for that, we rely a lot on our officers' input, analysis through things like high traffic intersections, analysis for impaired driving on where individuals may have had their last drink. So when we look at ride programs and strategic ride programs, as well as the complaint notifications we get from the community to let us know what's going on in their actual towns. So, and enforcement is one of many things that we do to reduce traffic issues. A lot of them are also, as you know, things that can be done when re-engineering and re-looking at roads and speed limits and so forth. Some of the reporting tools that we enjoy. So our website has gone through an improvement. I am told that we're looking at another improvement in the future, and that's one way that we get a lot of our information. And of course, there is the phone call or the straight email to our info@YRP. Online reporting is broken down into various categories, but we can accept online reporting for fraud, Crime Stoppers, thefts such as gas thefts. We also have our Road Watch compliance, where we would have last year 177 reports through Road Watch, and various community concerns are done online as well. We accept reports for damages to vehicle, theft under, identity theft, lost property as well. And the community concerns could be anything from disorderly conduct in certain areas, loud parties, that sort of thing, graffiti, dumping, and those types of offenses. What we do when we get that information in, whether it's through email or a phone call, we create often complaint areas, and that's where myself and Inspector De Silva will look at our various complaint areas to make sure that our officers are utilizing those complaint areas within their sectors to direct the patrol that they're doing when they have that additional time. So if we had a complaint area outside of school, we would be looking for the amount of times that our officers are actually spending time in that complaint area to make sure there's that level of compliance. So how can you protect yourself? So this is some of the information that we would provide citizens at various community events. The biggest thing is knowledge, and that's what we often pass on to people, is make yourself aware of what's going on in your community. A lot of that information for us is available through our website now. Also through some of our community events, we offer CPTED services, which stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, so changing lighting, changing the configuration of bushes in front of your residence or business to affect and decrease the amount of crime. Reporting suspicious activity, as well as, if you'll look on this on the diagram, that's a map that comes right off our website. So you can go right on our website and click on a map, and it'll show you the various incidents. You can go back 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, and so forth, and highlight over, then get an idea of what sort of activity is happening in your community. As well as on our website, there's our media releases to give people an idea of what's going on in the community. As well, just getting involved and volunteering in the community often gives citizens the opportunity to learn more about what's going on and what they can do. And lastly, when it speaks to knowledge, I'll just, our Connect with York Region, and the Chief will probably might want to weigh in here as well, I think, because we're very proud of what York Region is doing by way of social media and what our corporate communications people are doing. And we have Facebook, Twitter. We now have 121,000 followers on Twitter. A lot of stuff now on professional videos going on to YouTube, Flickr, Instagram, and so forth. And that's where a lot of citizens can get some very valuable information from us as well. And that's it. Subject to any questions?
Okay, thank you. I have a number of people in the queue. First, Councillor Quapis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that presentation. I really want to congratulate you and thank you for really stepping up to some of the items that were pointed out, specifically around the reporting tools when it comes to web-based reporting tools. That you're making it more user-friendly, and especially around the traffic mitigation section, which is near and dear to me, so thank you for that. Just want to mention a couple of things. A few weeks ago, I had a chance to tour your 911 facility center in Aurora, and I was quite impressed how well the technology interacts with the policing practices. The efficiencies that I've seen and the effectiveness that it helps you out is quite impressive. Secondly, I also had a chance to meet with some of your staff last week, specifically with Superintendent Slack and Inspector Paulo da Silva, Constable Richard McCarty, and Constable Meg Athrens. Very open to working with our community, and I wanted to thank you for taking the initiative of letting me know that you are willing to focus and teach the community around crime prevention and traffic mitigation way of reporting, and teaching community to how to behave in their areas that are the hot spots. So once again, I wanted to thank you for all the hard work you're doing for the community.
Thank you. Regional Councillor.
Thanks very much. Great presentation as always. And you know, I couldn't help but thinking as I was watching it, the holy grail of just about every business in Canada is to have the best product at the lowest price. And you've done that, which is pretty darn impressive to be able to say that we're number one in keeping the lowest crime rates and the highest levels of safety, and to do that at the best cost by the comparators is exceptional. And there's no question we have a very, very safe community. I believe Money Sense magazine ranks Newmarket in the top 10 in terms of safest communities in Canada. And so, you know, an exceptional job. You know, you mentioned Pride, you know, the Pride Day and Pride Fest, and the YRP presence there was exceptional. And I just wanted to mention another one, which was a little bit ago now, a couple months ago, but at the Community Safety Village, the YRP welcomed dozens and dozens and dozens of Syrian refugee families from across York Region. I was there with the family that the community of Newmarket's sponsored and supported, and what a day that was, and how incredibly appreciated it was by so many of those families that are new to our community. So incredible work and outreach. I have to ask one question you mentioned, and I think it's probably new to some people viewing, but you just mentioned about the proposed, well, not the proposed, the planned shift of one district over to Harry Walker Parkway for 2020. It sounds like. Has the board grappled yet with how they're going to handle the premise they're leaving?
No, we haven't got to that point
Okay.
yet. We do have other premises within the town here that we lease, so we need to consider what we do at those premises and cost effectiveness of where we would move those if we didn't have this facility that we could maybe repurpose. So there's still some conversation to be had in terms of long-term, and I know that the town here has been a great partner, and we will want to continue our discussions about what that property ends up being used for at the end of the day.
Great. And just also, and thank you for the additional comparative data with municipalities of the size of Newmarket. This is also very helpful and very encouraging. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bay.
Thank you very much, Chief John Listen and Superintendent Slack. Wonderful presentation, and I can tell you the residents are always appreciative of the services provided. People do recognize that we live in a very safe community, and York Region Police are a really big part of that. So thank you for all you do. As you're aware, and I believe you have the same experience, that the most frequent or the number one complaint that you receive is traffic complaints in residential areas. And obviously, everybody would love to have a police officer in a car parked in front of every school and every problem spot, but that's not practical. So we know that. So I have a couple of questions for you on that. First, about a month or so ago, the province has given, I guess I'll call it, given permission for municipalities to use photo radar for speeding and for stop signs. Can I have your thoughts on that? I know it's only been a short time, but to use these in residential areas, either fixed or moving the equipment around. So first, your thoughts on that.
So, first and foremost, I think that's an excellent idea. As an organization, we are challenged with providing services across a growing region, and we just cannot be everywhere for everybody. So I think the use of technologies in this day and age is most appropriate. Obviously, photo radar on school zones is probably the number one for us, and the fact that we do get asked a lot to be very present near schools and parks, and I strongly believe that would be a significant tool to enhance community safety.
Okay, so we're going to be implementing it next week?
Well, there are some hurdles there, I think, that have to be overcome. I don't know if the province has been able to place the fine into the administrative category right now, so, which causes some challenges without it being in that, means going to court for every violation, so significant.
Okay, so the process has started, and obviously we're looking 6 months, a year,
So
2 years down the road.
This will be obviously an initiative either of the region or the local municipality, so we will, of course, be supportive of whatever the decision is by councils across the region.
Okay, so you need a decision by this council.
Yeah. Well, it's not that. It's the business model is not a good business model at this point. Is that the authority to place the monitoring or the photo radar in the school zones is granted to the municipality, but the fine revenues end up in the hands of the region. So there's a disconnect there between recovering your costs, and that requires an order from the Governor General, is it, or an order from the minister?
The legislation needs to be altered to reflect the proper administrative practice.
Okay.
And the associations of municipalities of Ontario have taken that on, as has the region, and it will require a resolution from our municipality as well to request that the fines actually be considered as administrative fees, and if they're administrative fees, then those fees come back to the municipality. So, great idea, challenging reality, I think is probably the best way to capture
Well,
that.
I'm looking forward to all these problems, issues being worked out, because I can tell you, quite frankly, it'll be very, very popular, and as you mentioned, it's a terrific use of technology and frees your officers for other activities. Leave it at that. I have a second question. Thank you very much for your answer on that, and that has to do with the online reporting for Road Watch. Residents have asked me what happens. I sit there, I go online, I know the license plate, the time, the location, etc. of a car that is clearly speeding, going 70 through 40 or whatever, and sometimes it's the same car over and over again at the same time. So I report this online. What happens then at your end, and what consequence comes to that individual who was reported speeding?
So depending on the offense, the information comes to us, and then letters go to the registered owner that discusses the offense that was cited. So we're not looking for the road watch person potentially to come to court to testify as a witness. So as well as in some cases, you're identifying the registered owner, i.e. the vehicle license, not the actual driver. So the number one way that they're referred to is this education or information that goes to the registered owner. I can tell you though, at the same time, when we start to see multiple road watch for the same location and potentially for the same vehicle descriptors, we also respond the way I mentioned earlier by identifying that as a complaint area, where now we have a specific time and location where we can actually look to do more proactive enforcement and potentially identify, so we can charge the driver as opposed to notifying the registered owner. Okay. Most offenses, you have to identify the driver.
If I can ask that, perhaps you can put that information on the website, because it seems to, I'm not going to say disappears in a black hole, because that's not what happens. It's just that people don't know what happens. And even something as simple as saying that if you complete this form, a letter will go to the registered, et cetera, if he's received a number of complaints, because that
There is a
information is.
descriptor under the Road Watch label. There is a descriptor about the program and the information around the program,
Right.
as well as what the information is used for.
Right.
We also just recently added, I asked that they add, if you're not comfortable doing online reporting, because we do have some people that aren't comfortable utilizing technology, to feel free to contact us directly.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
So, all of those submissions are acted upon. They're acted on at a local level. We do check every plate that's reported to us to find out if there's been an infraction before. And as the superintendent says, if there has, then we look a little bit deeper into the matter. Everybody gets, and they get offended, because I get letters on the reverse side, because they got a letter from the chief of police telling them that they were spotted by citizens of the region doing something they shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah, and then they.
So I get the reverse, not so complaint, not so happy.
Right, and then they say, I wasn't even driving my car, my son had the car, why are you complaining to me
This
about
could
it?
be the case, right?
Thank you very much for that, and once again, congratulations on all the fine work.
Thank you. Councillor Bazance and then Councillor Broom.
Thank you very much, Chief and Superintendent, for that presentation. I look forward to, I think we're going to wash away here. It's coming down pretty hard.
Friday sunny outside, too.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. I do look forward to the presentation every year and just being brought up to date on the statistics and so forth. And just have a couple of questions with respect to the impact of prevention initiatives on the actual crime rate. For example, in my community recently, there was a bit of a blitz going on, the Lock It or Lose It campaign, to remind people that they should lock their vehicles. And, note to my husband, don't leave your wallet in the car either. And when one of the residents saw the police officer going door to door, the impression was that, theft is skyrocketing and, there's a big problem or else you wouldn't be here in the community. But have you seen that there is any correlation between doing that kind of prevention and actually seeing the rate of incidents decreasing?
Go ahead, Chief.
We're doing these programs, I won't say every day, somewhere in the region. Even if you can believe, putting up little A-frame signs saying, keep your car locked, has an effect on what happens in communities. But I'll share what I will suggest to you is an absolutely outstanding, great news story. And Councillor Taylor spoke about a little bit about the Safety Village and the fact that we hosted 200 Syrian refugee families at an outing at our Community Safety Village. And I think many of you may have been to that Community Safety Village. It's in Bruce's Mill. It has been open for 10 years now. And we have seen 400,000 young people. When I say young people, I'm saying between JK and grade 5. And then some older kids all wander through over a 10-year period of time. And I think you all are fairly well aware that the youth cohort of York Region is increasing, right? But I can tell you that our youth crime rate is going the other direction. So, as I said, we've been running these programs for 10 years now. And my gut tells me that the prevention programming that we do does pay off. And as I said, we are in community almost every day delivering prevention messages to remind people. Either we're doing it, as Mike has said, through social media, tips about how to protect your property or your belongings, but we find these things to be very, very powerful. Labor intensive, yes, but powerful.
Okay, thank you.
If I might add as well, that is part of our sector policing model as well, is identifying time that our individual patrol officers versus the specialized officers, community service officers, but giving our patrol officers time to do that level of community engagement as well. So And we are experiencing some people asking that same question, well, why is the officer at the skateboard park? Is there a problem? And I think that's, you wouldn't have asked that 25 years ago when you watched an officer walk down Main Street in Newmarket or walk through the mall, because it was an expectation that the officers would be out in the community, potentially handing out some information or just speaking to kids at a skateboard park. And we're hoping to get that mindset back again, that you get used to seeing our officers in the community and at the arena, where you can engage and ask very specific questions of the officer about the crime that's happening in the neighborhood or what you can do to reduce that crime. So I think absolutely there's a marked influence by what we do in the community that way.
We see a very significant correlation between community engagement and trust and confidence in our organization. So, as Mike alluded to regarding our sector model rejig of an organization, we're asking our folks to spend 30% of their time on call, 30% on administrative duties, 30% of their time doing proactive work that's sitting at a stop sign or running radar in a community, and we've added this in this past year, 10% to be dedicated to community engagement. So getting out of the car and talking to people and engaging community. So, because we know there's a direct correlation to that piece that you read about, that trust and confidence thing that you read there.
Thank you. One more question, if I may. You talked about the complaint areas, and I know with Road Watch, there is a requirement that you at least be able to identify the make, model, and if you can get the license plate. But does the complaint area process also work if people, aren't necessarily able to identify vehicles, but they know that, or they sense that their street or their section has a lot of speeding cars, and that they're getting very frustrated? Can they report that as a complaint area and have the 30% sitting there in that section?
Absolutely, and that is the majority of our complaint areas are people who've either reported online, reported over the phone, or reported by email that their neighborhood chronic people running a stop sign or speeding up and down my street, or kids loitering at a location, or drug use, that sort of thing. And what we do is those are assigned specifically to our core unit who manages those. They manage and identify how often we're in those areas. A lot of times we need to verify that information, and some of the work that the town is doing with the speed signs that you're able to put out, that's fantastic for us, because already we can identify how often that offense is occurring, because sometimes you will have a complainant and who might see the car go by speeding and think it's a chronic problem, and we'll have an officer sit there for several hours and maybe not see anyone speeding. So it's nice having that technology available too, to verify things in the neighborhood. And once it's verified, then we task our officers. So, and those all of those people have to have a contact back. So often the complainant is contacted by my sergeant, and then the results of what we've done goes back to them through that same sergeant.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Broom.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for being great community partners. Your social media has been excellent, and I especially enjoyed the mean tweets video. That was excellent. If you haven't had an opportunity to watch that, you truly should. I had the opportunity of having my Ward 6 community safety meeting, and Police Constable Roman Santos and Sergeant Mark Alterman came out armed with information and spoke to my residents about community safety, home safety, and specifically traffic, and learned and was actually intrigued by a pilot project that we're currently working on. Really liked some of the things that we were doing, and assured the residents that we're on the right track, which was great. So I just wanted to give them a shout out and thank you very much for allowing them that 10% to come out to our ward meetings and talk to residents, because it truly is helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So at $287 per capita, I think it's a real deal and great value when you think about how much we spend on our car insurance, how much we spend on our internet service. But I think it goes beyond that. I think that the relationship that York Region Police has with this municipality and our community is outstanding. We're very proud of the way York Region responds to our community needs, and we want to thank you for that. So thank you very much for bringing us up to date. Look forward to next year. It would be appropriate for us now to have a motion to receive not just this presentation, but the South Lake presentation. Can I have a motion? Councillor Vague and Councillor Broom. We modified that motion, so thank you very much, Chief.
Thanks for having us.
So we'll all raise our hands. And that is carried. Thank you. Well, we'll continue on with our community partners, and I'll invite Mike Walters from the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority to bring forward. Now, Mike, I know that we've got you listed as a deputation, but given the nature of the presentation and given the relationship that you have with our community, we'll treat this as a presentation rather than a deputation. So is 10 minutes going to do it for you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, it will.
Okay.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and staff, and members of the audience. It's my great pleasure to be here tonight to present the Lake Simcoe Phosphorus Offset Program. This is a program whose time has come, and hopefully I'm seeking council's support tonight, either through a letter or possibly a resolution. So, this program was launched back in 2012. It was launched over concern from the impacts of urban expansion across the watershed and the impacts that urban area was having on the environment. We had quite a collaboration. We had all our member municipalities. We had staff from the town of Newmarket sitting on the working group. We had the build industry well represented. We had agriculture aggregates, First Nations, the province, and the federal government. And after 2 years, we finally came up with some consensus on a report, and it was called the Lake Simcoe Phosphorus Offset, and it was published in August of 2014, excuse me. What phosphorus offsetting is, essentially, it's a development charge for the environment. And we're looking at the build industry to actually pay a fee when they develop to control phosphorus. And this is partially why. We are seeing phosphorus loads creeping back up in the watershed. The dotted line at 44 tons is actually the target that we're supposed to be achieving through the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. Currently, we're at around 91 tons. And as you heard on the roof just earlier, rainfall is a contributor. Rainfall is the direct mechanism which washes phosphorus into the rivers and into Lake Simcoe. So the increase is due in part to climate change as well as increased urban growth and population growth within the watershed. And we're going to see a lot of both in the intervening time period. This is the stats from the Places to Grow document that was released in 2010. Right now, based on our best estimates for 2017, there's still 9,900 hectares of growth that is going to be occurring within the watershed. About 3,000 has already occurred. So we are half as much again. The total growth within the watershed by 2031 is 35,000 hectares, whereas in 2010 we were at 22. So massive urban growth across the watershed, and if unchecked, could spell disaster for Lake Simcoe. Now, luckily, there are controls. If there weren't controls, we'd be looking at a 15-ton increase in phosphorus. And phosphorus is a chemical which promotes the growth of aquatic plants and algae. When those plants die, they rob the oxygen in the water and essentially impact on the cold water fishery. And before the last 5 years, we weren't seeing natural reproduction of the cold water fishery. It was a put-and-take fishery, essentially. If we were to receive another 15 metric tons of phosphorus going into Lake Simcoe, it would not have sustainable fishery. And recreational value of the lake is around $200 million annually. Fishing's more than $125 million. Luckily, we do have controls. There were conventional controls in place, which would reduce that 15 down to just below 7. With your help and the help of the province and a few other partners, we were able to bring in different new improved guidelines for stormwater management, and that's further reduced the loading to about just shy of 4 metric tons. Unfortunately, the number and the arrow is still going the wrong way. We need to reduce phosphorus going to Lake Simcoe. And that is the idea behind the phosphorus offset program. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is looking at, as I said, development having to pick up the bill for the sins of the past and working with us to undertake projects on properties or with our member municipalities to reduce phosphorus. Based on what we've estimated, we can actually see a 10.6 ton reduction in phosphorus, and that nets out at about just under 7 tons phosphorus reduction from the urban areas. So by 2031, instead of being almost 4 tons higher, we could be almost 7 tons lower. So what is phosphorus offsetting? It's not trading, it's a required offset, so this is much like a regulation. The picture in front of you depicts the city of Barrie. The red area is area that is uncontrolled, where there are no stormwater controls. The yellow has quantity but no quality control, and the green has both quality and quantity. This is not unusual. 60% of the city of Barrie is uncontrolled, and that's not unusual because most of the urban fabric was built prior to guidelines for stormwater management. So we just didn't know any better. So when people were building, we built, there were no stormwater best management practices at that time. So what we're looking at doing is essentially taking the funds that would be generated from the offset program and spending them to undertake retrofits within those red and yellow areas to get water quality controls. And by doing so, we get it at a much better reduction than trying to affect other changes throughout the watershed. This can happen based on something we're calling the zero export policy. The Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Honourable Glenn Murray, is in support of this program and has provided quite a bit of the funding, as did our member municipalities, for its initiation. And we're hoping that after we get the letters of support, he will be providing an underpinning regulation that will essentially require the zero export policy. With that said, I have to say that the build industry has become a very, very strong partner in this project, despite the fact that it's going to cost them money. We've been working with the build industry for more than 4 years on this project, and we actually have their support moving forward with respect to the offset program. It's not just a one-to-one offset, actually, because of the fact that we're going to be going into these existing urban areas and retrofitting. There is a requirement that we do a little better because of the uncertainty associated with retrofitting the uncontrolled area. So it's actually a 2.5 to 1 offset, and this is where the main benefit will occur with respect to the reduction. And the site above is one of the newest sites, and I put it in because it's our favorite site. It's the Vales of Glenway in Newmarket. This is not an offset. This was actually a developer who built his development right the first time, and he's achieving almost that zero phosphorus reduction. He's a little over 80%, 85% phosphorus control with the work he's done voluntarily. There are life cycle costs associated with these works. The actual cost to the municipality to undertake a retrofit would be at 100%, so there's no cost to actually do the capital work. The cost to the municipality will be borne by having to maintain the asset in perpetuity. So there is a cost moving forward. And we're recommending that we don't undertake expensive retrofits to ponds as much as we look at low impact development. It's a much more sustainable way of controlling stormwater, puts the water back in the ground, and essentially gets a much better return on investment with respect to phosphorus reduction. One of the concerns the industry had obviously was they wanted a fair playing field. We've produced what we call the Stormwater Estimator Phosphorus Tool. And again, we had the build industry involved in producing this, as well as the Toronto Region and Credit Valley Conservation Authorities. And essentially it's a tool that the industry can use to optimize stormwater on their site. They can get the best return on investment for what they need to do. We can also use it to make sure that the water budget on the site is being maintained, peak flow is being reduced, and that the phosphorus offset can be calculated for that exchange. Any project or program of this kind is going to require a lot of governance and oversight. We are looking to develop what we're calling a steering committee for urban stormwater projects. Any of those projects that steering committee would approve would go to our board of directors for ratification. The offsets would be documented in our meeting minutes and on our website, and there would be annual independent audits conducted as well. So we're looking again for the same stakeholder groups that undertook the study, our member municipalities, the build industry, the province, First Nations. We're going to be tracking and reporting on offset generation to show that we're actually making a difference. We want to be able to demonstrate that the phosphorus is being reduced within the watershed. So key performance indicators have been identified, and we have in the process now of actually establishing a georeference web platform where we could actually show the public the projects, what they have achieved, and did they meet the desired outcome as predicted. So very quickly, I'm just wrapping down how it would work. There's a new proposal within an existing urban area. They're going to be adding P-load, so they need to offset. And we're going to look for an offset within that existing urban area. How that actually is realized is, and I'll run through this example. This is a real example, actually. It's 176 lots on a 9.2 hectare site. The impervious cover increased by 45%. The total phosphorus load from this site without controls was almost 14 kilograms, 13.8. So the developer must maintain water balance and reduce phosphorus load to zero. Through low impact development and stormwater best practices, we could get 75% reduction on the site to 10.3 kilograms. So the actual phosphorus leaving the site is 13.8 minus 10.3 or 3.5. When we look at the actual offset ratio applied to that 3.5, we're at 8.8. And the cost per 1 kilogram of phosphorus to reduce it using stormwater best management practice has been estimated at 35,000 kilograms per year. So in this case, the total cost to the developer is $308,000. It seems like an awful lot, but when you equate that to the number of lots that are being created, it's just under $2,000 at $1,750 per lot. So just some other benefits of the program. This is about phosphorus, but there are a lot more benefits that will be achieved by delivering this program. Reduce peak flows. We're going to be undertaking these low impact development stormwater retrofits within the urban fabric. So we're going to be controlling the rainfall events and putting more of that water in the ground where it belongs. That's going to reduce the frequency and severity of flooding. And actually, I'm very happy to say we've actually seen that in Western Creek as a result of some of the works that we've partnered with the town on. And there'll be a report coming out on the specifics of those benefits associated with the retrofits and some stormwater maintenance that's been undertaken in the town of Newmarket. It builds increased resilience for climate change. It's going to enhance groundwater recharge and maintain drinking water supplies and, in some cases, ecological services. So if groundwater is used to support a wetland or a cold water stream, that will be maintained. And we've seen a creation of green industry jobs already. We've seen that happening just with the implementation of our program to date. We're seeing jobs in construction, operation, and maintenance springing up specifically to do with low-impact development. And these facilities are aesthetically attractive. They look like regular landscaping, it's just they're functional. And there is an opportunity for carbon offsetting on top of everything else. So this is a much better way, a more cost-effective, and a better return on investment for controlling stormwater in general. So with that said, I am looking for hopefully a resolution or letter of support from our municipality. And that's why I'm here tonight. I've been to all of our municipalities minus one. I still have to do Agila TOS, which is just, there's a sliver of it in our area. But I have been out to, as I said, the build industry, the First Nations, 3 levels in the province and Environment Canada, and we're all receiving letters of support from those folks. So to date, we've got more than 8 letters in the office, and hopefully I can count on council to provide one as well. So,
Okay, thank
I'd
you.
be more than happy to answer any questions.
All right, I have Councillor Quappies in the queue and Councillor Kerwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that presentation. Very informative. No doubt phosphorus is a major cause of our lakes and waters, especially reducing some of the recreational activities and the impact that it has, the financial impact. The challenge that I'm questioning is the reversal of 6,900 kilograms per year. You mentioned and you gave us an example of Barrie, where 60% of the development is already previous to the actual initiatives. Can you explain to me in more detail of what is being done in order to reverse that area or at least reduce that part? And let's use Barrie as an example.
Sure. Through your worship. The idea is we'll actually take this money and go into those existing urban areas and do what we call urban stormwater retrofits. So one of those prime examples is something we call streetscaping. It's almost similar to what Viva and York Region Metrolinx has done with the main street of Davis Drive. But it's actually more functional. It's actually creating what we call a treatment train approach where water will dig up the pavement. We'll put in pavers with sand and free draining materials underneath. We'll link that with under drains and actually channel the water, filter it, and where we can't actually infiltrate it into the ground, it would be collected and then discharged into the storm sewer. But it slows the water down dramatically. Another great example is the work we did in town here on Forest Glen. There's an example of a retrofit. It was a street that was looking potentially at going with curb and gutter. The residents got involved. We got the municipality involved, and you guys led the charge in developing biofilters down either side of the streets with road cuts and just reprofiled the road. All that water drains into those biofilters, soaks into the ground. And again, whatever doesn't soak in does run off, but it's much reduced. And I'm happy to say we haven't got all of our equipment out yet to monitor the benefits of that specific project, but we've been out keeping a photo record. So while it was pouring rain, people are out taking pictures of the outfall, and there's a trickle of water coming out. They're getting actually wetter trying to take the picture than the amount of water coming out of the outfall. So those are the type of activities. We've identified more than 250 low-impact development projects, and there's 170 some conventional stormwater retrofits that can be completed across the watershed already. And we've been meeting with your staff, and we're compiling that long shopping list of projects that we would need to do. Ray Twinney Center is another one where we've done some retrofit of the parking lot. So there's lots of opportunity in Barrie and Newmarket and Aurora, Keswick, any of the urban fabric that we have within the watershed.
I'm very familiar with that Forest Glen project, and thank you for taking that initiative. I think it was a great example of expanding that project. And I look forward to implementing similar thing on Queen Street when we actually have the construction go on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
Just a question to you, Mr. Mayor, and then another statement. Would it be best to authorize a resolution directly, or would we, through you to our CAO, what would be the best process, Bob? I know you're on board with this because you've been involved with the McCaffrey development and the Forest Glen project. What would be the best way to go?
Mr. Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think just based on the presentation, either would suffice. Council could direct staff to prepare a letter of support that could be signed by the mayor if you wish to take that route, in the absence of having to word a resolution tonight. But either approach is fine.
I think that's once we've received the deputation. I think that's the preferred route, Mr. Sheldon. The first one you mentioned. Yeah, I think we'll do that.
Right.
But I am lucky to sit on the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, and I publicly thank our Deputy Mayor John Taylor for that. But also he was involved in Forest Glen. I've worked with his father, now I'm working with the son on my passion for the environment and for the reduction of phosphorus in my beloved Lake Simcoe. But you also did a neat one on Arnold Street. It's really lovely the way you did the curb cuts, and I was over monitoring because my son lives on Gray Street, so I use Arnold all the time. The way you did the curb cut and the water flows off the road and into the catch basin, and it's used on the lawns at South Mike. It's is that what you call a curb cut?
Through your worship, yes.
Yeah, that's. I would have loved to seen it right across the Glenway subdivision. I mean, there's going to be 750 homes on the east side, and another 650 on the west side, and I really still believe that it would be neat. It would have been neat to have seen those curb cuts in that entire subdivision, because it certainly would reduce the the off-flow of water running down the street, but it would be used for watering the lawn, and it would be filtered, Mike, before it would go into the catch basins and then into the Holland River or into the Bogart Creek or whatever. But on behalf of the town of Newmarket, as a representative through the region, I commend you, Mike, as our CAO of the Conservation Authority, and I just love working with you, and once we receive the deputation, I will be making that movement. Thank you.
Councillor Kerwin, I don't have anyone else in the queue, so it might be appropriate for you to receive the deputation and make that motion. Okay? And,
Once I receive the deputation, and that included with that to make the motion from the CAO.
okay, that the mayor provide a supporting letter?
Yep.
Drafted by staff, okay,
Yep.
good. And could I have a seconder for that? Councillor Quapis. Now I do have one more speaker. Councillor Pazance, I'm sorry I missed you.
Thank you for that. Actually, just a point of clarification, Councillor Kerwin mentioned 742 units in Glenway and 650 on the west side of Glenway. I think you mean on the north side of Davis.
On the north, yeah.
Yes, I don't want to strike fear and panic in the hearts of many who think that suddenly we're finding 650 more homes, but that's the north side of Davis and Glenway. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to have my own problems in my own ward, but it is the north side of Davis.
Speaking to the motion as well, then Regional Councillor.
Just want to clarify to you, Mike, the support you're getting so far, is it in varied ways? Is a resolution a preferred route to a letter from the mayor, or both is better? Would you like, because we could probably even do both. I mean, or what's your timeline? So I just thought we want to be as supportive as we can, and just would like to know what's.
Go ahead, Mike.
Through your worship, we've been providing, and we can provide an example letter that we've provided to our other municipalities. The letter would be fine. And armed with those, I'm going back to see the Honourable Mr. Murray and have him enact the regulation, hopefully. So.
Thank So, yeah, thank heaven for word perfect and pasting letters, which is good. No further discussion then. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? None, and that is carried.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you, Mike.
I'd like to, if I have the opportunity, just to thank staff, because we have an excellent partnership with your staff, and they are always responsive, and especially Peter and Rachel, who have been fantastic, and of course your CAO, who's an old stormwater hand from many years ago. So thank you very much.
Well, collaboration works both ways, and I very often hear about how well it works out between staff and the Conservation Authority. We're the same community, it's the same environment, we need to work together. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
We have one more deputation, and that is from Chats. And I don't see Tim Jones here, so I'm going to look at Ms. McCready to represent Chat. And we permit up to 5 minutes. Is that sufficient for you?
Yes.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, got the wrong, there we go. Okay. Mayor Van Buyden, members of council, staff, and residents. My name is Gaynor McCready, and I am a program supervisor with Chat's Home Adaptation and Maintenance Program. In celebration of the fact that June is Seniors Month, I thank you for allowing me to raise the awareness of the services that Chat's Community and Home Assistance to Seniors provides to our older adults in Newmarket. We have all heard the senior population is growing faster than any other age group, and York Region has one of the fastest growing senior populations. 1 in 5 people will be over the age of 65 by 2031. Most older adults are homeowners and live in a single detached home in York Region. The good news is that people are living longer. Average age in York Region is 84.1. The life expectancy is increasing for men, which is good news for them, and hopefully good news for women as well. People are living longer, but with more chronic conditions. 1/3 of Canadians between 65 and 74 are disabled. 2/3 over 65 take 5 or more prescription medications. Most older adults would prefer to age at home safely and with dignity. Living at home is the most cost-effective solution for most people. Older adults need the proper in-home care to enable them to stay at home and not feel isolated and undercared. CHAT's mandate is to keep older adults safely in their homes, living independent lives with dignity. CHATS provides a variety of services that are tailored care plans, and where needed, subsidies to the programs are provided. CHATS will not turn away any senior for lack of pay. Some of the services that CHATS supports is community programs, transportation, in-home services such as assisted living, support programs for caregivers, and home safety services. Now, who does CHATS serve in York Region? 8,100 clients, both York Region and South Simcoe. Average age range is 75 to 84. More than 40% of CHATS clients live alone. CHATS is one of the largest community agencies servicing 11 municipalities. What does CHATS support currently look like in the town of Newmarket? Just to give you a few stats here, is 782 clients in Newmarket presently work with CHATS. We provide approximately 6,500 drives through our transportation program, 3,700 hours of service through our home health program. We would like to say thank you to the town of Newmarket who provided CHATS with donated funds providing items for our Adult Day program. Also, a big shout out to our 38 volunteers in Newmarket for their support with CHATS. Now it's our turn at CHATS to give back to the town of Newmarket through the expansion of our home adaptation and maintenance program at CHATS. We began the home adaptation and maintenance program in the rural areas as we recognized a huge need to support snow removal and lawn maintenance in these areas. Municipalities cannot always pay or provide as a tax-funded service for snow removal. HAMP services Georgina, East West Gwillimbury, Bradford, and Newtek, and now, very happy to say, Newmarket. Our mandate is to keep people in their homes safely and with dignity. HAMP provides service arrangements for adaptations in the home and property maintenance. Eligibility is 55 plus and live in the Newmarket area. We have subsidized services for clients that require financial support. HAMP provides residents free home assessments to provide the recommendations for adaptation, such as grab bars and mobility aids. Also, we provide recommendations for maintenance. One of the key is snow removal, which is so important for clients who need to have a clear salted path from their door to their car so that they can avoid any slips and falls. Also, clients need to feel confident that their caregivers, like their PSWs, personal support workers, can get in to see them as well and care for them. A couple of quick additional programs that are no cost to our Newmarket residents is our home safety checks in partnership, which made me smile with the police here today, with local fire and police to make safety recommendations to residents. We work with the fire departments on the smoke and CO detectors to make sure they're in good working order and they're in the proper places of the home. And we also work with the crime prevention, with the police on crime prevention through CPTED, which I know they mentioned previously for the home checks. The other area, which as I wrap up, is our handyman program, which we provide at no cost to the Newmarket residents. Any small jobs, you know, just those things that need to get done, hanging a picture, you know, changing a light bulb, fixing a door handle. A lot of people get frustrated because they can't do this. Well, HAMP can do that. The clients provide the materials, and HAMP provides the service at no cost to the Newmarket residents. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, clarification? Councillor Bazans, I know you're quite familiar with the program.
Yes,
Go
thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Gaynor, for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I think this is really good news for Newmarket residents, and certainly it's also good news for the town and our budget, because it enables seniors who need that little bit of extra support to be able to maintain their homes and stay in their homes, to do so. And so the program offers them that opportunity, as well as the security, I guess, and the comfort of knowing that CHATS, which is a reputable organization, credible organization that has very good relationships with the suppliers, that that they can have that confidence and trust that the people that would be recommended to provide them with those services are folks that won't take advantage of them, and are providing the service at a relatively good cost. So
Absolutely.
I think it is good news for residents in Newmarket. To this point, it's only been available in the rural areas, as Gaynor said, and just through some efficiencies and so forth, we were able to expand it into Newmarket. So,
Thank you. I know that at least my office very frequently receives requests with respect to grass cutting, snow removal, not the sidewalks any longer where that's being done, but that can be a very valuable service, so that people are not housebound and have the ability to get out, and also have the ability to have people come in and provide their PSW services. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much for your time.
Another important community partner
Thank you.
for our community, and very valuable in terms of responding to the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to receive the presentation? Christina and Kelly? All those in favor? Any opposed? None? And that is carried. Well, it's been a very informative evening this far. Next item then is the confirmation of the council minutes of June the 6th. Could I have a motion with respect to those minutes, please? Councillor Twinney? Councillor Broom? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Reports by regional representatives. Regional councillor.
Thanks very much. A couple of things I thought to update council and the public on that would be of interest. The first one is, as many people know, Vaughan has a vacancy on its regional council seats at the region, and that has to be filled due to relatively short amount of time left in the term. Vaughan has selected to appoint a new member and not go through an election at this point, with an election being a little over a year away. So they've gone to an appointment. They'll go through a process. People are able to put applications. I think the deadline might even be today, or give or take a day or two. It's very much around now. What they're doing is they're going to interview, all of council will interview all applicants, 5-minute speaking, and then possible questions from council for each applicant. And I believe at this point there have approximately 60 applicants. So that will be, if anybody wants to go, if anybody wants to go and watch and take it all in, book yourself a full day off. And
5 times 60, that's 300 minutes of interviews.
So I just thought you might find that interesting. The other thing I thought I would just highlight, and I do think it's of importance to this council, is that there's a piece of legislation called the Retail Business Holidays Act. The region has been dealing with what is a relatively flawed piece of, in my opinion, a relatively flawed piece of legislation for many years now. And this legislation, essentially, at the provincial level, provided a number of blanket exemptions to holidays that many places could be open on. Obviously, pharmacies is one we're familiar with, but there's many more. Convenience stores, flower stores, and the list goes on and on and on. Then they said to the regions, you can exempt other businesses or areas based upon certain conditions, mostly around economic development and tourism. So if you could make the case that it was tourist related, then it could be exempted as well. And over the last decade or more, the region has embarked on various exemptions. Some people hire very high-priced consultants to come in and build the case that they're a tourist location. Some of those have been malls. Others have been different things. But in the end, what you had happened from there was you started with all the exemptions from the province. Then you had some municipalities exempted en masse, like Georgina. And so they're only closed on Christmas and New Year's, I believe it is. Others are Christmas and Easter. And then there was individual cases, and then there was an OMB ruling in Southern Ontario that overruled a municipality that said no to a mall, and they said, yes, a mall is a tourist destination. And in essence, the floodgates were open, and it was really hard to say no to anything for various reasons, not only the OMB ruling, but it was also becoming so inconsistent. A furniture store in a mall could be open on various holidays, but a local furniture store on your main street couldn't be. So the region's been struggling with this. The province is making more changes, and the region's coming back with a report. And the reason I'm raising this here is because one of the options on the report is to allow or to provide municipalities the opportunity to exempt themselves en masse and have that debate on a local level about whether to have places, whatever's left, remain closed or not. I would suggest that this is not such a good idea. It's going to lead to the patchwork that we're already dealing with. I think the region needs to be consistent across the region. Again, otherwise you're going to have stores on one side of a regional road open and one side closed, and the competition won't be particularly fair. But wherever it's going, I think there's so many exemptions and so many openings now. Virtually every mall in the region's open now. Many of the grocery stores are. And all the exemptions that it began with, and including all of Georgina and I believe all of King. So anyway, I just thought I'd let everybody know because that could be coming to this table, but my position at the region is that it shouldn't come to the lower tier because it should be a consistent approach across the region. But we'll see where that goes. It could be, and so just thought everybody should be aware that there's a possibility that will occur.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll then go on to reports of committee and staff. First item then is the Committee of the Whole of June the 19th, and we will be dealing with item number 10 separately because of the declaration. Are there any other items to be dealt with separately? There being none, then, could I have a motion to approve the minutes and recommendations with the exception of item number 10? Regional Councillor? Councillor Broom? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Councillor Kerwin, is this?
Fine, Mr. Mayor, but it didn't catch.
Oh, perhaps we hit the mic. Okay, we've got that. Okay, while we're adjusting that, could I have a motion with respect to item number 10 being dealt with again?
Yeah, I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerwin. Okay, seconded by Councillor Twinney. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that too is carried. Thank you. All righty. Next item is the Committee of the Whole closed session of June the 19th. Could I have a motion with respect to those minutes, please? Councillor Twinney. Councillor Quapis. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Having adopted those minutes, could I please have a motion that the appointment of the committee closed session meeting minutes of June the 12th, 2017 be approved, and that the following motions be approved. A, that Kelsey McIntosh be appointed to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and B, that Lloyd Waite be appointed to the Appeal Committee, and C, that Merrick Dabrowski be appointed to the Newmarket Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that Ben Longstaff, Dina Farsad, and Stephen Kovacic. And Stephen, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, be appointed to the Environmental Advisory Committee. Motion, please, for this mover, Councillor Quapis and Councillor Vague. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Next item is item number 8, which is an appointment under the Building Code Act. The report and the recommendations are before you. Could I have a motion with respect to the recommendations? Councillor Kerwin? Councillor Vague? Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item is the Audit Committee minutes of June 21st. Recommendations are to receive. And yes, so we're just doing the minutes at this point. Members of the Audit Committee, Councillor Bizance and Councillor Kerwin. Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Coming from the Audit Committee, we do have the financial statements and the auditor's report. The recommendations are before you. They are that the financial statements be received and that council approve the Town of Newmarket's draft 2016 consolidated financial statements as amended, the trust fund financial statement, and the Main Street BIA financial statements as endorsed by the Audit Committee. Could I have a motion? Councillor Quapis and Councillor Bizance. Any discussion? Regional Councillor. Oh, I'm sorry. As the mover and the seconder, any comments?
No, I received all my clarifications that I needed before.
Okay.
And having sat through the Audit Committee presentation, I feel quite comfortable and confident.
Okay. Regional Councillor then.
I feel terrible for having questions now. If I could, I just have a couple of questions, mostly related to page 84 in our report. The user charges, actual and budget, the revenues were substantially higher, and I was just wondering if there's an explanation. I mean, that's a good thing, but it is a significant. Like, and normally I would expect that we would have anticipated something to that magnitude, but maybe there's some. Just curious about what the explanation is related to that.
Mr. Mays?
Thank you and good evening. Through Mr. Mayor, there are two major components for the additional revenues we picked up in user fees. Firstly was on building permits. The revenue we brought in on building permits was substantially more than we had put into the budget. One of the main factors on that is we had a large amount sitting as deferred revenue at the end of 2015. We were able to recognize that in 2016. That would be one of the reasons why you would have seen deferred revenue decrease in 2016. The other is on the water and wastewater. We have always built the water and wastewater budgets on a conservative nature. The conservation efforts by the region have been extremely successful, and what we've been finding over the last few years is growth has been offset by conservation. However, in 2016, we found that was not the case, and that the growth in revenues exceeded our expectations. So in both cases, those funds were put into dedicated reserve funds. The building fund additional revenues can only be used for building fund purposes, and the water and wastewater were put in their rate stabilization reserves.
Okay, thank you very much. In a similar manner, the gas tax allocation, I wouldn't be surprised if the federal gas tax allocation, I wouldn't have been surprised if we weren't, if we couldn't anticipate grants or other types of grants from the federal government, but gas tax, we normally have a pretty good sense of the kind of revenue we're expecting, or was this part of the increased announcement, and but I didn't think it was that dramatic, but is that what it's related to, was the announcement of the,
Mr. Mays?
what causes it?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor. One of the nuances of PSAB accounting, Public Sector Accounting Board accounting, is that we have to allocate revenues that are related to capital only when the project is done, not when the funds are received. So you notice that all the government transfers, there's variances, and this is historically happens, that the amounts that are transferred, that are recognized as revenue, are not necessarily the full amount that was either received or was available. We can only recognize it as revenue as it was received. So the actual amount of gas tax received was as per the budget, but it could not be recognized for revenue. You'll notice the same thing under contributions from developers, which one of the major components in that is development charges. Again, we can only recognize capital revenues as the capital project is done. And
the last one then would be rent and other, actual versus budget, and the discrepancy there. Is it a similar? No, it can't. Mr. Mays?
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, the building of the 5th fire station was when we originally contemplated and put it into the budget, Newmarket being the employer, the assumption was that we would build in a Newmarket, or it would be built by Newmarket, and Aurora would be contributing towards it. So what was shown in the budget was the contribution we would have been receiving from Aurora. However, what is in actual fact happened, as you know, the land was purchased in Aurora and is being built by Aurora, and Newmarket is contributing towards it. So though we have a discrepancy on the revenues, it was a capital revenue, it just means what we're capitalizing for our share of the fire station, rather than being 100% with contributions from Aurora, is only our approximately 60%. And we don't receive revenues.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item is bylaws, and we'll deal with the bylaws with the exception of 2017-43, which is the official plan amendment for 260 Eagle Street, and 2017-44, which is a zoning bylaw amendment, and again, because of declarations. Does anyone wish to have any of the other bylaws dealt with separately? Okay, Madam Clerk. You can read them all and we'll deal with them separately.
Okay. Bylaw 2017-39 is a bylaw to provide a noise exemption regarding the playing of music on July 15th between 7 and 9 p.m. at 958 Cree Bridge Crescent. Bylaw 2017-40 is a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2010-40 regarding zoning provisions related to 106 Main Street South. Bylaw 2017-41 is a bylaw to appoint a chief building official, deputies, and inspectors. Bylaw 2017-42 is a heritage bylaw amendment to correct the legal description of the designated property formerly known as 450 Davis Drive and currently known as 470 and 474 Davis Drive. Bylaw 2017-43 is an official plan amendment to permit townhouse units on a private road on the lands located at 260 Eagle Street. Bylaw 2017-44 is a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2010-40 regarding zoning provisions related to 260 Eagle Street. And bylaw 2017-45 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 2011-24, which regulates traffic within the town and is related to bike lanes on various streets.
Great, thank you. So could I have a motion then with respects to bylaws number 2017-39 through to 42 and 2017-45. Councillor Vague, Councillor Kerwin? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I have to ask, and if this came through council, I apologize, and I don't recall, I'm just looking at it, but the bylaw for the exemption of music for 2 hours at a specific house.
It was read wrong. It's actually from 7 to 11, not 7 to 9.
Well, then we need to get that. Okay, that's important.
Yep.
It says in the bylaw, and whereas the council of the town of Newmarket deems it advisable to provide an exemption as amended to allow this, I don't know anything about this unless I missed something. So I don't know how I can,
I'm wondering if that's a delegated authority. No? Okay.
well, it wouldn't be probably bylaw. So I guess I don't know how I can deem it advisable if I don't know
Madam
anything.
Clerk?
Was there something that was circulated, I missed it maybe?
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was an information report circulated last week, I believe on June 15th,
Okay.
that gave the background regarding the request and that the particular ward councillor had been contacted about this request.
Can you just remind me what, in general, what it's about? Like, what, is it just somebody requesting to have a band in their backyard for?
Yes, they have an outdoor music between that specific time period, which under our current noise bylaw is not permitted.
So, under our current noise bylaw, what exactly is not permitted? Like, any music outside? Wow, okay.
Amplified music?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are doing a review of the noise bylaw, and that's one of the bylaws that we will be bringing forward, hopefully in the fall, for consideration, to remove some of these types of requests that in the past were prohibited.
Okay, I'll support the bylaw, and especially since the ward council are supporting it, but I guess I'll look forward to hearing if there's any issues or not. I mean, it's just a tricky, and I guess I'm glad to hear that we're reviewing this, because it's a tricky business to get on a one-offs. I mean, people start to say, well, I'm having a party, and I'm having a party, and then, you know, one of these times we'll hear back from a neighbor. So I'm a little cautious about that, but since we're addressing the bylaw in its entirety and the ward councillor supports it, I'll support the bylaw, and we'll wait for feedback.
My understanding was that there's a process as well, where the neighbors are to be advised of that,
Right.
of that as well.
Okay, the neighbors have been advised, yeah?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Notice went out to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add, Madam Clerk? Nope. Okay. So we have a mover and a seconder. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay. Number 2017-43 and 44. Moved by Councillor Kerwin, seconded by Councillor Broom. All those in favor? Any opposed?
This doesn't include 17. I read it before I voted.
Yeah, it's the two that you did.
It's the two that you declared on that were, yes. Okay, all right. Yep. So I think that deals with all of the bylaws? Okay, good. Are there any notices of motion? Any motions?
No.
Okay, good. Announcements. Start with Councillor Vague.
Thank you very much. Just like to remind Ward 1 residents that we have our Ward 1 drop-in happening on Tuesday, July 4th, from 7 to 9 at the Magnus Center. This is an opportunity for Ward 1 residents to come by and say hello and talk about any concerns they may have and suggestions that they may have to make our ward even better. So I'm looking forward to meeting with our residents, and it's a reminder there will be no Ward 1 drop-in in August or September. So I am looking forward for you coming by on Tuesday, July 4th. Also, and the notice will go out because this is a little bit early notice, but I'll be hosting a free Ward 1 barbecue on Wednesday, August 30th, from 6 to 8 at Ken Sturgeon Park, just off of Lockwood Circle. And the barbecue is being held in conjunction with the Town of Newmarket's Moonlight Movies event, which will start at about 8:15. So we will have displays there, free hot dogs, hamburgers, refreshments. So I do invite all Ward 1 residents to come out and enjoy the movie. And I understand, I've been told the movie is called The Boss Baby, which I had to Google, but apparently it's a fairly funny movie and a somewhat relevant movie. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. It's Disney and Dreams work. But again, that'll be on Wednesday, August 30th, and I'm looking forward to having our neighbors come out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To acknowledge Canada's sesquicentennial, the town of Newmarket is creating a National Theatre Festival where artists across Canada are offered a new market for their stories and a national stage for their regional perspectives. Dates for the inaugural festival are Saturday, July the 22nd to Sunday, July 23rd, with a fundraising gala kickoff on Friday, July the 21st. 24 original 10-minute plays are packaged into 4 pods of 6 shows, each playing at Pickering College Theatre. That's at 16945 Bayview Avenue, and Newmarket's newly refurbished Old Town Hall at 460 Botsford Street. The festival features Main Street attractions such as Festalicious, menus in local restaurants, art galleries, street markets, historical walking tours, and festivities at Riverwalk Commons. The cost is $15 per pod, with discounts offered on 3 or more pods. Gala tickets are $75. Tickets and show schedules are available at nationalplayfestival.ca. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you. This July and August, join us for Music in the Park, most Sundays at Newmarket Riverwalk Commons, which is at 200 Doug Duncan Drive, and most Thursdays at Fairy Lake Park from 7 till 8:30. Enjoy a musical treat with local entertainers sharing their talents. This free event runs weather permitting with no rain dates, so let's hope the rain will finally stop for these events. A complete list of schedule of dates, times, locations, and performers is online at newmarket.ca/events. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor.
Thanks very much. Tuesday, tomorrow, June 27th, there's a drop-in session here at the town offices on active transportation, the proposed active transportation implementation plan. So 5:30 to 7:30 here at the council chambers at 395 Mulock. You can come in and provide input onto our on-street bicycle facilities and trail systems throughout the town of Newmarket and input into that. If you have any questions or you're unable to attend, please contact Bill Gould at 905-953-5193. His extension is 2512, or B Gould, G-O-U-L-D, B-G-O-U-L-D at newmarket.ca. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quappies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The town of Newmarket invites you to our 2 summer family campouts. The first one is on Saturday, July 22nd at the Environmental Park, which is located off Woodspring Avenue. And the second one is on Saturday, August 12th at Fairy Lake Park, which is located just south of Water Street. Whether you're an experienced camper or this is your first time, come out and spend the night outdoors. Pop your tent open, eat a traditional camping dinner, have fun, play games, sit around the campfire eating s'mores, and sleep under the stars. We start at 1 p.m. and the cost is only $15 per person. You can finish your camping experience by waking up with the sunrise and enjoy breakfast around the campfire. This Town of Newmarket event is in partnership with Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. Thank you.
Councillor Broom.
Thank you. I have a few announcements. Trinity Glen Housing Community hosted their annual garden competition this past week. Congratulations to all the residents for their incredible efforts, and thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the judging committee. I would also like to highlight our community for their incredible work on the 3rd annual Jamie Ann Palm Butterfly Cup golf tournament this past week. For those of you who did not know Jamie, she was in a tragic accident and lost her life 3 years ago. She was an incredible person, athlete, and is very loved and missed by the community. Jamie would be graduating high school this year. The Butterfly Cup raises money to provide scholarships for grade 12 graduates, and this year 2 graduates receive scholarships. Looking for something fun to do this summer, join us each Tuesday in July from 7 to 8 p.m. for Kids Downtown. This child-oriented entertainment show allows you to bring a lawn chair or a blanket to delight in the evening's entertainment. Check newmarket.ca/events closer to the date for a list of featured entertainment. Kids Downtown will take place at Newmarket's Riverwalk Commons In case of inclement weather, which is likely, the show will take place inside the Newmarket Community Center and Lions Hall. And finally, I'd like to wish a very happy, healthy, and safe summer for all the kids graduating school this week.
Thank you. Councillor Bazans.
Thank you very much. This past Wednesday, June 21st, there was a public information center held regarding wildlife and specifically coyotes, with town staff, animal control staff, Ministry of Natural Resources staff, and members of council, along with residents. And I want to thank very much the residents who came out to make sure that they would be informed about this issue, which is one that is affecting residents throughout the town. I just want to highlight some of the key points that they raised, in the ministry staff raised, because I think it's very important and helpful for residents to be aware that you actually can prevent encounters and coyotes from coming around your property. First and foremost, by limiting food sources, doing things such as keeping your barbecues clean and covered when not in use, securing garbage in durable plastic containers with locking lids. Most importantly, storing your garbage indoors until collection day, and that not only helps keeping coyotes away, but some of the other critters and varmints as well. And maintaining compost in containers that keep the wildlife out. One important element about preventing conflicts with dogs and cats is always keep your dogs and maybe even your cats on a leash when out walking. And if you do encounter a coyote, here are some tips that they gave us on how to deal with that situation. Don't turn your back or run. Back away and remain calm. Make really loud noises, bang pots or blow a whistle. Most importantly, never feed coyotes, not even throwing breadcrumbs over the back fence or feeding dog biscuits or anything else like that. Don't feed the coyotes. And if a coyote does appear aggressive, phone 911. There's a few things that the town is also doing to improve information and education for residents on wildlife. The information has been updated, and that's posted on the website. The town is currently working on some brochures for residents. We've posted permanent signs in 17 locations throughout the town. And something that I think is going to be really useful is an app is being created for our website so that residents will not only be able to report coyote sightings, but they'll be able to go on the map of Newmarket and see where those sightings have happened. So if there's perhaps a cluster of sightings or something like that, then the ministry can be alerted. And also communication for residents through tweets, town page, and so forth. So the most important things, though, don't feed coyotes and keep your dogs on a leash and cats in the house or on a leash if they're outside. The other thing I wanted to let people know about is that Ward 7 residents are invited to join me at the 3rd annual Ward 7 Summer Gathering, which will be held Wednesday, August 16th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Alexander Muir Public School on Ford Wilson Boulevard. Enjoy refreshments and discussion about happenings in our neighborhood and how you can get involved in making our community even better. Our summer gathering is being held in conjunction with the Town of Newmarket's Moonlight Movies event, which will start at dusk around 8:30. And I understand that we have Smurfs, The Lost Village as our movie. So bring your children to enjoy some fun activities. There'll be a bouncy castle, face painting, and more fun. For more information, call 905-953-5323 or email me at cbazans@newmarket.ca.
Thank you. So on Saturday, July the 1st, join us in celebrating Canada Day at the annual Canada Summer Festival. There will be vendors at the Newmarket Farmers Market and stage entertainment at the Riverwalk Commons, in addition to a pancake breakfast at $4 a serving that's being presented by the Newmarket Car Club as early as 8 in the morning. Beginning at 11 a.m. in the Fairy Lake area, enjoy entertainment for all ages. Finish your Canada Day at George Richardson Park, which is off Bayview Parkway, starting at 7:30 with musical entertainment, followed by an amazing fireworks display at approximately 10 o'clock. And full details are available online at newmarket.ca/Canada. You can also purchase, or I'd encourage you to purchase, the 150 Days of Summer button in advance at any customer service kiosk to reduce the wait times on the event day. Now, all of this is subject to the weatherman agreeing. And for the last couple of weeks, the region has been responsible for the weather. So maybe one day, when we become responsible for the weather, it'll be sunny. But this is all subject to the weather. Now, there will be a free shuttle from the Ray 20 complex to the downtown area on an ongoing basis. And Mr. McDougall, perhaps where could our residents go to get an update if there's any changes? Would that be on the website? Okay, on the website. Alrighty, thank you. The municipal offices are also closed on Monday, July 3rd to observe Canada Day. And our next council meeting is on Monday, September the 11th at 7 p.m. I think that's a special council meeting, and and I think the notifications for that will come out. So this is the next regular council meeting. But we do anticipate having a special council meeting in July. Okay. New business. Regional Councillor.
Thanks very much. Get some feedback from staff, whether they'd like a motion or just a direction to staff. I'm hoping as part of the, and I'm sure it'll be anticipated to some degree, but as part of the proposed active transportation implementation plan and the feedback that will be gathered throughout that process, that staff can take a specific look at a multi-use path opportunity or a off-road bike lane on Mulock Drive. I know we've had discussions about this before, and staff brought a report, an information report to council in June of this year related to this topic. I think this is should be personally, and obviously we have to look at public input and all kinds of other things, but I think this should be one of our higher priorities. I think it's a road that has the potential in terms of boulevard width in most places, and has great opportunity to have a lane that would serve that entire corridor very usefully, and I think it would be incredibly well used if we were able to achieve it. Now, of course, it's expensive, but there is at this time, there is the Ontario Municipal Cycling Program, the OMCC. It's a multi-year program, $42 million available. That was announced just recently. So there are some funding opportunities out there, and I really would like us to sort of, as part of this implementation plan, explore our various options for a bike lane of this type or style to be determined in the future along Mulock Drive. I think particularly with the new GO train station coming to Mulock Drive, which is relatively new news for us. This is a significant change, and we're going to be doing a secondary plan, and certainly we'll be seeing greater levels of intensification, residential intensification as well in that area as a result of that. And so just would like to keep this high on our radar and revisit it in one form or another, whether it's through a separate report or after, or as part of the reporting back on the public consultation, et cetera. So just maybe some staff feedback on what they feel would be the best way to continue to monitor and explore both the funding opportunity and where it fits into the overall active transportation plan.
Mr. Noheimer? Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that that item of new business. Yes, you're correct, Deputy Mayor. The Active Transportation Network Implementation Plan, which will host a PIC tomorrow evening, as you've mentioned, does consider the Mulock facility. It could take the form of a multi-use path, and it is something that the town and it would have to be in conjunction with the region, being a regional road in the region's network, would be something that we would have to work on together in terms of an element of our application towards this granting program, the Ontario Municipal Commuter Cycling Program. We understand that there is an application deadline for that program for the first intake in August the 18th, and
It perhaps would help if we had council direction or council resolution to move forward with an application as part of that program that could include this facility as well as other possible projects as part of our active transportation network. We are still reviewing the application process and could provide council with additional information, not only with the granting program, but also the project you mentioned in terms of our ability to partner with the region as part of a first tranche of projects that we would apply for.
Okay, and how do you see the potential, the likelihood of the near-term shift in Boulevard jurisdiction on some of the regional roads and the responsibilities therein? Is that we should be able to still move forward on applications and just we might be handled differently operationally in the future. Is that correct?
Yes. So just to answer that question, on Mulock Drive being a regional road, the municipality, Town of Newmarket, could make an application in partnership with the region, but because the facility would actually be on property that the town does not own but the region owns, we would have to demonstrate that we would have the agreement of the region to make the application. And that's pretty typical with any form of provincial or federal grant. So we would work together with the region.
Okay, so I guess my feeling on in listening to the feedback we've had is that the deadline is in August, and we really don't meet again until September for approval purposes. I know we're consulting other things, but I guess what I would say is that we've seen how challenging it can be to implement bike lanes on some of the residential roads that have higher volumes, et cetera. I'm not saying that means we shouldn't do that, but I do think that our priority, both from a practicality and a funding perspective, and I think from a user perspective, should be directed to a project that has this kind of visibility, high traffic, and doesn't have the complications that other projects have. And I think this would be, I think we'd be surprised at the kind of usage this facility, especially if it was, and I don't want to prejudge the process, but especially if it was off-road, which I think the potential exists here. And so I would like to just move a motion that we direct staff to submit applications to the OMCC in regards to the Mulock, and to regards to a bike facility, let's call it a bike facility on Mulock Drive.
Mr. Sheldon?
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if the Commissioner could just comment on whether through the OMCC program there's a potential for two steps. One, to apply for funding for feasibility study and route selection, that type of thing, and then one for implementation, and perhaps even all in one application where the first part has to be satisfied before you can move to the second part.
Mr. Noheimer? Certainly. As I mentioned, we're still going through the particulars of the application process, but it does appear to be a very flexible program where it provides funding over a 4-year period, and the municipality would provide a list of projects that it would identify as eligible for commuter cycling routes as part of this program. Our active transportation network puts us in good stead because we already identify a number of projects, and that would be the first step, that we would list some projects. The Mulock facility could be one of a number of projects. And then the granting authority, in this case the OMCC program by the province, would provide an allocation of funding to all applicants, and that funding could be used by the municipality on any one of those or a combination of those projects that it lists as eligible. And the other good thing about this program is that the project needs to be, or the project that gets identified for funding used by the municipality needs to be completed by December 2020. So there's quite a long, or even 2021. So there's quite a long period of implementation
involved with completing these projects. There are annual updates or semi-annual updates even that the municipality can provide to the OMCC that can provide updates as to how the funding will be used. And additional funding could be provided each year as long as you apply for additional funding. So it's fairly flexible at this point.
So I think what I'm hearing then is that we can apply for this, for Mulock Cycling Facility and other cycling facilities in the town of Newmarket, and then we can do more in-depth feasibility studies, and we can apply the dollars wherever we decide afterwards, as long as it's one of those ones that were listed. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
So, okay, so then I just altered the motion. I think you kind of hinted it when you were speaking the first time. I altered the motion to say that we direct staff to apply for the Mulock, for a Mulock facility and other facilities in town as per the active transportation plan.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Broom, okay. Want to speak any further on the motion?
That's great, thank you.
Councillor Broom is the seconder.
I just think being a member of the Smart Community Advisory Board, it'd make perfect sense for me to support more cycling commuting options. So I'm in support of this motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions? Being none then, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Any other items under new business? I do have one. I'm on the board of directors for the Newmarket Tay Hydro Corporation, and we do have one board member that has come to the end of his term as far as his representation, and that is Andy Ott from the Township of Tay. Our shareholders agreement requires a certain process, and that is that we advertise for candidates, and those candidates are reviewed and narrowed down for consideration by the Governance and Compensation Committee. And the Governance and Compensation Committee is required to bring forward 2 candidates for the approval of the Hydro Board, which in turn recommends those 2 candidates to a special ad hoc committee of the 2 municipalities. Now, the Governance and Compensation Committee is in the process of making the recommendations they're required to do. I fully expect that the board will endorse that this week. And so we'll need to strike the ad hoc committee. And that is 5 members of the 2 municipalities. And the structure of that committee is 2 members from Tay and 3 members from Newmarket. I know that Tay intends to send their mayor and their deputy mayor, which leaves 1 additional member from our council. And I'm seeking a volunteer to be a member of that ad hoc committee. Okay, I have Councillor Bazance in the queue. Councillor Bazance?
Yeah, I'd be happy to participate in the process, having actually gone through it myself once, but certainly if that's of value, I'd be interested.
Okay. Any other members, or are we good? Are we good? Okay. All right. So could I have a motion then that the mayor, the deputy mayor, and Councillor Bazance be appointed to the ad hoc committee for Newmarket Tay Hydro? Councillor Twinney, Councillor Kerwin? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you. There is no requirement of a closed session this evening, and the only thing outstanding is the confirmatory bylaw, 2017-46. Could I have a motion with respect to that? Councillor Twinney? Councillor Quappies? All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Broom. Councillor Quappies. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Have a great summer, everyone.